in a post-apocalyptic landscape, and that Armageddon has already happened. And the finest architecture that we see today is just the remains from before that apocalypse. And what if these old world buildings once served practical functions, once providing the earth with an abundance of free energy? But then what if the founders of this old world then suppressed that knowledge from us and suppressed it again
All of history was changed and made up.
when it was rediscovered, rewriting the history books to create a narrative that benefits them, rebranding and destroying the most obvious evidence of this advanced civilization via controlled demolitions and orchestrated wars, thus creating the naive and obedient population of today, who are unaware of where they came from or the timeline they're even in, foolishly believing that we are the pinnacle of humanity, not realizing how far we've fallen. What if we're already living in a
So true. Rewrite history, add years to our timeline, get rid of most of the adults, tell the kids one thing, but the proof is out there.
The world is not what you have been told. We once had access to free energy, and they've been lying to us ever since. There is significant evidence showing that Nikola Tesla was on course to changing our universe forever. In the early 1900s, Tesla developed a technology called the Wardenclyffe Tower. This was more than just a transmission tower. Tesla designed it so it was able to wirelessly transmit electricity across the globe by harnessing the Earth's natural energy. He was able to
Still
power
done to
his
this
home and
day,
devices without a
we're
single
paying for
wire.
free
But
energy.
here is where it gets dark. Tesla's invention threatened powerful individuals who controlled the energy market. J.P. Morgan, who initially funded Tesla, pulled the plug on the project when he realized that free energy couldn't be metered or monetized. But it gets even stranger. Tesla's lab mysteriously burnt down, and many of his notes and prototypes disappeared. Tesla's discoveries went beyond just wireless electricity. He hinted at tapping into what he called radiant energy, a limitless source of power derived from the very fabric of space itself, similar to what modern scientists refer to as zero-point energy. Many say that this is also how the Tartarians were able to pull off so many of their technological and architectural feats. Do you think this tower is still in use today?
I think it is.
What if the history we've been taught is a massive lie? Before the world we know today, there was another, far more advanced civilization, the Tartarian Empire. This mysterious society had technology beyond anything we have now. They had the ability to harness atmospheric energy and used it to power all their buildings, generating free, continuous energy for everyone. No oil, no pollution, just limitless power. But their knowledge didn't stop there. The Tartarians understood the power of frequencies and vibrations, enabling them to manipulate substances in ways we can barely imagine. They used this to construct grand architectural wonders, moving massive stones effortlessly, structures like the Great Pyramids and other ancient marvels, which we still struggle to explain today. So what happened? In 1859, Edwin Drake drilled the first successful oil well, sparking the rise of the oil industry. This free energy was a direct threat to the growing oil empire, and powerful forces couldn't allow that to stand. Slowly, they wiped out the Tartarian civilization from Asia, Europe, and North America, erasing nearly all evidence of its existence. The oil industry did this to seize control, ensuring profits and dominance, while keeping the knowledge of free energy buried and forgotten. And so, history was rewritten.
So look right here at this crack that's in the street that's forming up here. This crack in this street runs all the way up here. And I'm looking at this joint yesterday, and I'm like, yo, what is going on with this crack? And then bam. That's when I basically realized that that crack running all the way up the street was this train track right here. You feel me? This is a train track. And that train track runs all the way down here. Like that train track runs all the way down this strip. All the way down there. You see that? See that crack? See that right there? Look at that. That's for a rail line. And another thing, these rail lines aren't set in pebble or nothing like that. Look at that. They are intricately set in brick. Big, huge brick. Okay? Rail lines, look, perfectly set and leveled in the ground, going all the way back there. Look at them rail lines in the ground. Look at that. That's a rail line in there. And now, I got to go figure this out because basically, once again, they covered this old world up and they just threw. Think about this, though. This is going to be the 1800s, late 1700s right here, right? Think about it, though. You got intricate brick with rail line laid in, right? And then what? 100 years later, all y'all can do is this bullshit. Just look at this. Put asphalt over it. Yeah, we're about to get into this shit, Buffalo. And bam, look right here, too.
Have you ever heard of Tartaria?
Tartaria.
You've never heard of Tartaria? Oh, it's like my
love
favorite
this.
thing.
A bunch of structures all over the world, and the United States included, where we can't even build it today.
Tatari. Look up Tatarian Empire.
Tartaria, there it is.
Asia, Tartaria. Well, before we get into that, have you ever looked into like?
Oh, wait a minute. They seem to say it's real. That was a real place.
Have you ever heard of Tartaria?
Tartaria was this empire, highly advanced. This empire existed in modern day Russia, but now historians stuff like, no, it didn't. Well, guess what? There's a document from the CIA about Soviet Russia and the impacts of communism with the changing and racing of history. And they talk about Tartaria. It says, or let us take the matter of history, the core of a people's cultural heritage. For example, the Central Committee of the Communist Party issued a directive ordering the parties to proceed to the scientific revision of the history of Tartaria. Tartar history was to be falsified in order to eliminate references to hide the fact of the real course of the Tartar-Russian relations.
What does that all mean?
So basically,
it existed.
That just made me freak out a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the Native Americans and like how developed they were and like how they're connected to people groups from all over the world. But the Smithsonian's like, no, we're going to write history like this. They were isolated and dumb.
Yeah, it can't be vindicated because it didn't exist.
Yeah. Tartaria was
theory is a controversial hypothesis that suggests a catastrophic event took place in the 18th or 19th century, resulting in a massive flood of mud that covered entire cities and wiped out entire
We're still
civilizations.
digging out.
According to this theory, the civilization of Tartary, which was once a powerful empire that covered a large part of the Eurasian continent, was destroyed by this event, and its existence was deliberately erased from history by the ruling elite. One of the main pieces of evidence cited by proponents of the Tartaria mud flood theory is the presence of mysterious buildings and structures in various parts of the world that seem to be older than the officially recognized timeline of human history. These structures, known as megaliths, are often made of large stone blocks that would have been impossible to move and erect using the technology available at the time they were supposedly built. Another piece of evidence cited by proponents of the Tartaria mud flood theory is the strange architectural features found in many old buildings in Europe and elsewhere. These features, such as strange windows and doorways, seem to have no practical purpose and are unlike anything found in modern architecture. Proponents of the theory argue that these features are remnants of an older civilization that was destroyed by the mud flood. There are also claims that the Tartaria mud flood theory is supported by geological evidence. Some researchers have pointed to the presence of sedimentary layers in certain regions of the world that seem to indicate a massive flood event took place at some point in the past. Other researchers have claimed that the soil samples from various parts of the world contain high levels of unusual substances, such as iridium, that are typically associated with meteor impacts or other catastrophic events. Proponents of the Tartaria mud flood theory.
Meteorites aren't real. There's a dome above us, firmament. Check your Bible.
Things get really weird when you start thinking about mud floods, liquefying of
the terrain, what was happening between like the 1860s and the 1920s. You got all these fires, you got all these floods, all these hurricanes, all these storms, and you got the Dust Bowl. What was the experiment? I mean, there were power lines all over the place. And it goes to show you that nobody was thinking that they're putting power lines all over the place. These advanced buildings that are just absolutely stunning, and then you got power lines all over the place? Doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't build a building that is harnessing water energy and all about the water and the beauty of the earth and then put power lines all over the place over here. Well, let's say an electrical storm occurred on the earth, some massive electrical storm. That could actually cause everything to turn into liquid too. If you add enough heat, you can turn things into liquid. I could get the reflection off of this from the sun onto the earth. I could then cause things to turn to liquid. And it's interesting too, because they don't allow you to experiment with high static fields in 2024 if you're around power lines, because the power lines will completely disintegrate. So then you start to sit there and think, okay, well, maybe high static fields turned everything to mush. And then we're on layers and layers and layers and layers and layers.
Look at that, a whole city indoors.
You know, things get really weird when you start thinking about mud floods, you know, liquefying of.
Now, this is a sphinx that got covered in mud from Noah's flood. All these mud floods happened worldwide. It was the flood of Noah. You could see it push mud up over the sphinx right here. It dried like concrete. The sphinx is sitting on top of a whole entire temple right here. You can see where the sediment gets pushed up, even on the steps. It came in sideways and mud wiped out this whole entire temple. These sphinxes are found all over the world, okay? Whether it's in Egypt, Greece, India, there's even one in the Grand Canyon. That's the Sphinx in Balo-Christian that got flooded. This is the Sphinx in Egypt. This is the one sitting in the Grand Canyon. You can see the Sphinx had its head knocked off somewhere. It's probably buried behind it in sediment. That's a pyramid behind the Sphinx covered in mud, okay? All these sphinxes and pyramids are sitting on top of that temples, the same temples that were in Balo-Christian. See right here how that Sphinx in Balo-Christian is sitting on top of it. So that's going to be like your Greek and Roman ancient pillar columns right there that run across like a Colosseum. And that's going to be another top of a temple right there. And that's why when they excavated out the Sphinx in Egypt, they found all kinds of chambers and tunnels underneath, because that Sphinx is sitting on top of a temple. You see, this whole area got flooded out, but it pushed sand up in Egypt instead of mud. This is all water damage on the surface right here. 3 generations of stonemasons. The first thing I was taught to see was water damage on a stone surface. This stuff deposited sediment so thick that nothing's going to grow through it for thousands of years, okay? That's why you only see small brush and shrub growing through it, because it's literally concrete that dried. At the top, that's a temple on the other side of the Sphinx in Pakistan, okay? This is all off the coast of Hingol National Park. Right here on the bottom, that's a temple in the next country over for reference, because that's what got flooded, was an ancient temple. They line up perfectly. Same site, Balo-Christian, Pakistan. That's a temple right there, covered in concrete, dried. All them horizontal lines running across, those are the water level lines from the water dropping. Okay, and it cut into the sediment and left them patterns. I could do this all day. This is another temple. These are all temples underneath this. You can drill into this and it will be open on the inside of it, because the mud only got so far into it. They poured every single one of these pillars with special concrete. These were not carved out of mountains, shaped and casted and poured these with concrete. That does not age or weather. They used a different formula than what we're using today. This is a statue right here on the other side of the Balo-Christian site, okay? They all wanted to be worshipped as gods, so they flooded them all out. This happened worldwide. Now I'm going to take you to the petrified forest in Arizona. This is all petrified wood right here at the surface, okay? This whole entire site flooded, brought the wood to the surface, and that's why all this is sitting on top. That only happens from water right there, okay? The mineralization like that occurs only from being in water. Behind that, on the other hill right there, that's your temple right there. This whole site has buried temples underneath it, okay? These are water level lines going across the mud sediment, creating these erosion lines or mineral deposit looking marks. Let's look at this. Look how big some of these tree structures are. This one looks like a giant bone. Just like this one. This is a guy standing at the end for reference, okay? This could very well be the petrified giants from the flood wiped out all the Nephilim. This is the Grand Canyon right here. This was all flooded out. There's temples all inside of here. There was an ancient civilization buried in the Grand Canyon. What we see now is just the water the stream left from cutting all this out. Water. What is going on in this picture, and why are there pillars under the US Capitol? And why are there buildings on top of buildings? All of these questions lead you to the mud flood. And you may ask, what is the mud flood? The mud flood is a worldwide cataclysm that happened almost 200 years ago. This event wiped out many civilizations and buried many cities worldwide. This would explain why there are so many buried temples and structures around the world. And keep in mind, this was a worldwide event. And just look at this picture of these guys that dug up a statue at Easter Island. Look how far they had to dig down to reveal the whole structure. This just comes to show how huge this flood was. And you may ask, how in the world is a mud flood possible? Watch this video of dirt turning into mud with the correct frequency. And many people believe the civilization before us were the Great Tartarians. But that topic is for another video. I highly suggest you look into the mud flood. It is a super interesting topic. And I always suggest you do your own research on these topics. Like and follow for more content like this.
Instead, the theory claims that during the 19th century we occupied these cities after excavating them intact from underground, where they had been buried by a catastrophic natural disaster, often referred to as a mud flood. According to this theory, the older and more impressive parts of modern cities were built by a lost transoceanic Central Asian empire known as Tartaria, which supposedly ruled most of the world during a golden age of science and culture. We are now merely inhabitants of the ruins of their advanced civilization, largely ignorant of what truly lies beneath our feet. The mud flood theory has its origins in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, gaining traction on internet forums and social media platforms. Proponents of the theory point to architectural anomalies, such as buildings with windows and doors below ground level, as evidence of a buried past. They argue that these features suggest entire structures were covered by mud and only partially.
His story. Sidewalk. Airship. That's all hidden technology from the Tartarian Empire.
Listen, when I saw this bad boy, my jaw dropped. This motherfucker right here, just look at that. It looks so beautiful and so perfect and so majestic. It looks fake. I know, look at y'all. Y'all like, man, that's AI. Nah, it's not though. This is a real motherfucking castle. That right there, that's water. Look at this. Do you know where they built this? In between two mountains. Look at that. Look at the perfect ratio, the phi ratio. Look at the cymatics, look at the frequency. Remember, I was in Buffalo. Didn't I just show you 3 doors? Look at those 3 doors again. Uh-huh. Yeah, y'all see that, right? What you're looking at is the Las Lajas Sanctuary in Colombia. This is in Colombia. And they're so off with this one, they don't know what to say. They're like, yeah, built between 1916 and 1949. Like, so what? For how many, like, so for 30-something years, y'all were working on the 30-something years? First off, on an intelligent level, y'all need to understand something. Nobody's working on a building for 30 years. Do you understand that? Who's the foreman? If he dies, the plans change. So this is a complete another lie. It's pure premium grade A BS. Look, construction started 1916 and completed it. Really? Does it look like this building was sitting around with scaffolding around it? In 1916, in between a mountain cliff. Like, in between a mountain cliff. First off, you can't get a truck, you can't get a horse, a buggy, you can't get the equipment, you can't get a crane there. I'm sorry. We can't do this now. Y'all did not build this. Look at this. It's between 2 mountains. Let's just be humans. It's 1916. 1916. You and your boys get to the cliff. Drops off. You see water all the way down there at the bottom. Are y'all going, yeah, this seems like a good spot to build a castle?
Right.
Really? 100% Tartaria.
Applause and they're definitely smarter than we are today. That was just weird.
This video is only hundreds of years old. We were so more advanced than what we think. History is a complete lie. They are covering up something.
Everything.
This is definitely some sort of anti-gravity technology used by the ancient Tartarians. History is his story. These videos are not just it. There are pictures of the ancients using advanced technology that we do not even use to this day. Why are we not told about this? And why is this not in our history books? This looks like some sort of spirit technology to see the other side, or some sort of hologram technology. What do you think?
Great Wall of China. This is the steepest part of the Great Wall of
You ever wonder why the Great Wall of China is so perfectly geometrically shaped? Well, it's not a wall. Check out Game of Thrones intro. Now, this is going to show you quite a bit of different Tartarian technological architecture, which are going to show you that they're engineered machines. Here you can see how pillars may have been crafted. If you engineer it properly, you don't need a lot of manpower. And it almost seems like they're showing you an order of things. So when that gear is activated, then you have this machine, which potentially could be something for harnessing electricity because that's a tree. And trees generate electricity. The taller they are, the more electric they are. There's a lot of things about the ice wall and the Arctic Circle and forbidden area. I personally think there's something about frost, like Frosty the Snowman and Snow White, but that'll be in another video. Notice the silvery stream. Is that mercury? Check out this wall with that coin. Imagine that against the Great Wall of China / Tartaria. Okay, so now that that's activated, it then turns on another thing elsewhere, probably connected. Oh, this one is how they raised pyramids. See that rotating structure in the center? The pyramids were built from the top down because we pulled it upwards from the bottom. That's magnets and mercury creating that spin. Now here we have, what is this? Some sort of a rotating device. You can see there's a gear. And I know this is a show, but universal law states that they have to tell us somehow to avoid karma.
Truth in plain sight.
Check this Ferris wheel. Look at how large that Ferris wheel is. So each little part of that Ferris wheel can hold anywhere from, each car weighs, oh, here's a good one. Each car, this is 1893, and I have to keep repeating 1893 because people are, as I'm showing you, on horse and wagon, but they're building things like this. Each car weighs 13 tons when filled. The weight is greatly increased. It's an iron axle. It runs through the roof, suspends, blah, blah, blah. The wheel in its car weighs about 1,200 tons. Okay, so people who I just showed you, who are walking around with umbrellas and in suits on the beach, which make absolutely no sense, are building Ferris wheels and things like this, which are absolutely just insane, that weigh 1,200 tons, and they're making over one revolution of the wheel carries 1,400 people into the air. I mean, it's very hard to believe any of this. And then how about this? Here's another step. Look at the detail behind the Ferris wheel, right? So when you look at the detail, even just behind, look at the domes. Those are Russian domes. You know those little onions you see in Russia? Right over on this. Let me see if I can move my hand right over here. Right here. That's a Russian dome. That's sitting in, I don't even know if this says the state. Oh, 1893 Chicago. Sorry. Check this Ferris wheel. Look at how large that Ferris wheel is. So each little part of that Ferris wheel can hold anywhere from, each car weighs, oh, here's a good one. Each car.
The steering is also interesting. The steering is done this way, by twisting the whole track over to one side. And you will notice that while we are quite vertical, quite level, the sphere on the outside tips over as ice curve, and we can therefore run round corners in accordance with our tip.
How cool is that? That was very cool.
I lived in an old house. It had fireplaces in every room except the bathroom. The realtor told me that the fireplace cannot be used because it wasn't built properly. I thought it was strange. The Tartarian fireplaces did not burn. Fireplaces were as spectacular as the buildings they stood in. But unlike the way we use fireplaces today, the fireplaces themselves were not designed to burn anything. The chimneys were not used to draw smoke out of the fireplace, and out of the house's structure were not used primarily to provide any structural support. The reinforcement in the house was connected to the dome of the tower on the roof, which was quite possibly filled with various substances such as mercury, radium, or quartz crystal, and metal bars sticking out from the top and sides of the building. Everything was then connected with the metal back sheeting found inside the original Tatar fireplaces and chimneys. Metal poles sticking out of the upper and side sides of houses and other Tatar buildings acted as ethereal electric antennas that harnessed the power of the ether to channel this free energy into the chimney. The air ventilation shafts, air ducts, found in the rooms of the house were connected to the chimney. Ionized air, along with rising and falling currents of hot and cold air, created a pressure electric vacuum inside the chimney. During the winter, chimneys acted as pressure electric vacuums, emitting captured heat inside the chimney out over the fireplace. During the summer, the process would be reversed and the fireplace and ventilation pipes would absorb heat into the fireplace and air ducts, connected to the inside of the chimney inside the house and through ionized air from the etheric electrically charged metal backboard. Inside the KO mine would push the heat up the chimney and out the house. Reinforcement, dome, roof towers, and metal bars sticking out of the sides of the house acted as a spider, attracting ether and concentrating etheric energy throughout the house. Just like spiders can grow and survive without food and water if they touch their web, Tartarians were able to live without food and water provided they remained inside their etherically charged home.
I never heard that one.
For all those people who was wondering what happened to Tartaria, we might have just found it. This may be the modern day Tartaria. So, Turkmenistan is a country found in Central Asia, and I don't know who their architect was, but their buildings look Tartarian. So let's take a closer look. As you can see, they've got gold domes on top of the buildings, which we now know to be natural energy conductors. It's been a long time since somebody made a building this way. And look at this one. This looks like a modern day pyramid. That looks like a spaceship. Like, what do you think the purpose of this building is? Now that's definitely a natural energy conductor. So yeah, it's definitely one of those cases of we don't build them like that anymore. For all those people who was wondering what happened to Tartaria.
Look at that detail. And it's just remarkable when you start to look at the detail of these buildings. As I go through this book, there's a couple interesting things. Here is one. Look at this picture. These are people on a beach, right? And they have umbrellas, which is just weird. So let me just zoom in real close right there. They're on the beach and they have umbrellas and they're also wearing suits, which don't make any sense. And what's interesting about this picture is in this picture, if you can see all the way back there, see that boat? that huge boat. This is 1893, right? So we're in 1893. You got people on horse and wagon. They got dirt roads. They're supposedly going around on their buggies and, riding around on their buggy, farming and whatever nonsense that we've been told. And then you have ships that look like this. That doesn't seem to really fit the narrative, right? So 1893, right? So you got a battleship, which is just absolutely remarkable. It's actually called Battleship Illinois. If you can see that. Look at that detail. And it's just remarkable.
Just shows you that everything we were taught about history is a lie. They're hiding everything from God to technology to civilizations. Thank you for watching.